I came to the UK when I was 18. So I spent the first 13 years of my life in Nigeria, you know, going through primary school, secondary school, and A levels, before I decided to come to the UK for my first degree. So coming here when I was 18 was a massive transition, because it was, my first time, living outside of Nigeria, my first time schooling outside of Nigeria, and I had to, adapt on so many levels. But the interesting thing is, the adjustments that you have to make when you're studying is nothing compared to the adjustments you have to make when you start to work. And I'm going to focus more on the adjustments I've had to make when I transitioned into work, to build a successful career. So as I said, came here in 2010 to study at the University of Gloucestershire. So I did a degree in business studies, and and as most of you might relate, the first few years here was somewhat adventurous, because you're in a new country, you're trying to understand the accents, you're trying to sort of make sense of what people say, you're trying to get your head around London and the underground map and how it all works. And at the same time, you're also trying to sort of succeed. You're trying to get used to the education system, which is completely different from what we're used to in Nigeria and in other parts of Africa. So I definitely say the first 4 or 5 years that I spent doing my first degree, and then my master's was adventurous. It was all about just absorbing all of the cultural differences. But I would say it was when I left university and started working in 2015 that it really hit me, how different we are as Nigerians and Africans from people that were born here and English. And I remember when I started when I started my graduate job. So yeah, got a tech graduate job, and joined with a very diverse group of people, actually. So it was probably about 30 of us fresh from university. It was probably about 7 to 10 Nigerians there. So it didn't really feel like much of a change, right? Because there was a few people that I could connect to. But then fast forward to a couple of weeks later, you've joined a new company as a graduate, you've gone through a series of training, you then get put on a project and you start to work. And that's where you start to meet different people that are so different from you, right? They speak differently, they think differently, their mannerisms are different. And you know what, it's a real shock, because particularly if you grew up in a country like Nigeria, where you're like the majority, and then you transition here and become a minority, and you not only have to deal with communication barriers like cultural differences, but also a whole lot of challenges that us as ethnic minorities have to deal with. It's genuinely a lot. And I would say that a couple of weeks ago, when I was reflecting about how I found the first few years of work, I would say that I was a bit frustrated, and it was because I just felt so out of place. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I just want to shine a bit of light on the process that I've had to go through. It's been a very tough process, from trying to fit in, in a place where you stand out, where you're different, where your accent is different, where your way of thinking, the things you eat. So it was a lot. And I remember a particular time when I was on a project and I did a piece of work, and my manager then gave that piece of work to someone else to present, because then not only was I so sort of not so confident, in the way I spoke, I was also very nervous, right? Because I'm in a room with very senior white people, and the natural sort of response is, oh my days. And then regardless of how much you prepared, everything just flies out of the window. So I guess for that reason, I noticed that they kept giving my work to other people to present. So I'll do all of this nice projects, I'll do, reports and design, and then they'll give it to someone else who was white, male, British, with very, very nice articulation and emotional intelligence to present. And that happened for a couple of months. And I think it was then that I started to realize that actually, if I do want to succeed in the UK, if I want to have a successful career, I do have to adjust. I have to start making some changes, and I have to change my mindset, because I can't wait for the managers that I work with or people that work with me to adjust. To an extent, everyone needs to play their part in building an inclusive sort of work environment, an inclusive team. But us as individuals also need to identify those areas where we need to improve on, those areas where we need to slightly adjust the way we think and the way we do things, so we blend in a bit more. And that was where my journey really started, and it's been a journey of self-awareness, one, really understanding myself and what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. So for me, at that point, I wasn't great at communication. And communication is not really about you being able to talk when you're amongst your friends, when you're in a familiar place. No, it's being able to articulately sort of get your points across in every single scenario, regardless of whether you're talking to someone senior or someone junior, someone you've never met before, or someone that you know really well. So that was one area of weakness that I identified. The second area of weakness I identified was in relationship management. The way we relate in Nigeria and Africa with people is very different from the way British people relate. Their mannerisms is completely different. And without really understanding who they are, and how they think, and I don't want to generalize, but I'm trying to be as real as possible. Without really understanding those differences and knowing how to relate with them, you would really struggle to build like any relationships. And I know a lot of people spend years at their workplace and only end up having one or two friends who are Black and from the same country. So I picked up on that really early as an area that I needed to develop. And I knew that was going to be one of the toughest things, because one, it would take time, and also it would take a lot of adjustments. Then the third piece for me, besides the sort of communication and cultural elements that I've mentioned, and relationship management, was also understanding what professionalism means in the UK, because it's different from what it is in Nigeria or Africa. So in the UK, when you're late is considered really, really rude. And that's something that I'm still working on. Even up until 2 years ago, it was given to me as feedback. Elizabeth is amazing, but our time management could be better. That was after years and years and years of trying to work on my time management skills. But the point I'm trying to make is it's really important for everyone to sort of pick up on all those different elements, all those sort of professional skills, all those attributes that is the norm here, is sort of expected of you, and make sure that you start to emulate them. And ever since I've picked up on those points, communication, for example, I've been actively sort of seeking to improve it. Now I, as part of my role, I have to speak to a lot of senior people, directors, CEOs, even sometimes CFOs, and some of the feedback that I get is that, oh, Elizabeth, you're so bold when it comes to speaking to really senior people. And that's because I got coaching, I got people that I knew were good at communication to mentor me, and I also started sort of putting a lot of effort into, tapping into those opportunities where I'll have an opportunity to sort of present to someone senior, communicate, do public speaking, and other things that would just help me work on that area of improvement. And with respect to relationship management, I've had to really change my mindset a lot, and become more open-minded. Focus a lot on getting to know people, and also learning how to effectively, so when you're relating with someone, and this was something that I learned last year, it's important for you to sort of get to know them and their level of the way they like to relate with people and their level of energy, and try to match that. And I know that it sounds like a very simple point, but particularly in British culture, there is a level of similarity around how people talk, the mannerisms and sort of the way people sort of present themselves. So there's been a lot of work, I mean, for me, going into trying to understand that and emulate that. And it's not about losing yourself and changing yourself. It's all about adapting. And human beings are very good at adapting. We've adapted so well since the lockdown started. We're now having this sort of conversation on Zoom, just as effectively as we would, if we were doing this in person. So, any opportunity we get to adapt, I mean, it's a really good way to sort of build new skills and broaden the way we work and the way we think. So it's not been about me losing myself, because the person that I am at the core is still the same. It's just that as you meet more people, as you sort of broaden your mindset, as you sort of broaden your network, you get a lot more understanding of the different variances, right? The different ways people think, and you become more versatile, you become more flexible, you become more adaptable. So you can fit and adjust to any sort of situation or environment you find yourself. And I've talked about the professionalism element, which is really, really important. Again, I do sort of pick up sometimes that us sort of Black Africans in the workplace, don't realize the importance of time management, and some of the things that we're used to that no one really has issues with back home, but is a big deal here. And I think those little things make a lot of difference. So I guess in summary, I'd say communication and sort of adapting that and taking and finding the right opportunities that would allow you develop your skills further, that would allow you build more confidence. It's really, really important. Getting mentoring, getting coaching. I know a lot of people that have gone for Toastmaster courses or courses where you actually learn how to do public speaking and present with impact, just to work on that skill, because it's really, really important. No matter how good you are, if you cannot get into a room, command attention, and get your points across in an articulate way, right? There's always going to be someone that can cram your work overnight in an hour and present it, and that's the reality. Relationship management, really, really important. And I'm happy to sort of share more detailed experiences. I know we don't have enough time, but it's really, really important to understand how people think and how to get to know people and build relationships with them. And hopefully later on in the call, we'll talk about like mentorship, sponsorship, and some of the types of relationships you have to build that would help progress your career. And I'll just say finally, it's been an interesting journey. I mean, I've been working for 5 years now. I guess the type of transition I've had to do has been quite interesting, because I've also had to develop like leadership skills and actually lead teams of white people, teams of people that are so different from me, and that's even more tricky. So it's a journey, and that's what I'm trying to say. You're not gonna sort of get there after 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years. It's a continuous journey. As you progress in your career, you would need to continuously pick up new skills, new attributes, and those and sort of shape, refine the way you think, the way you work, so you can sort of be successful and progress in your career. I'm going to pause there because I want this to be a conversation, and I'm happy to sort of dive deeper into any aspects of my career, of my journey that is of interest to people. I don't just want to go. So yeah, I'll pause there now for questions and comments.
Wow, the first thing I'll say is Elizabeth, that is so, so good. Like, even though I feel like we've not even had like in-depth conversations like this before, and I'm just so excited. Please, can you start putting your comments in the chat box? You guys are just silent. Please, let's tell me, how was Elizabeth? What do you guys think? And I'm just going to recap some of the points that she's mentioned today. Oh, nobody's commenting, so we're not listening, or please, let's see your comments in the chat box. How was that, Elizabeth? I think that was amazing. That was really good. And because some people joined us late, I would just say welcome everyone. Like, that was so, so good. And I'll just go over some of the things that she's talked about again before we go into the questions. I know you talked about self-awareness, you talked about communication, you talked about relationship management, understanding what professionalism is. You said mindset change, like being open-minded, matching people's energy level, adaptation, being able to command attention and get your points across. And you also talked about the fact that it is a journey. Like, that is so, so good. Like, I think this has been really, really insightful.